The Cosm chair, Will.
Yes.
This is the sequel to the Aeron, or is it a totally different thing?
That's how we like to see it. It is a totally different thing, but it's sort of like from 90s to 2018, 19, it is the great evolution of office chair design, as nerdy as that sounds.
I know, well, we could talk about office chairs for far too long. The Cosm chair is new from Herman Miller.
Yes.
It is, it's unique in that it has no adjustments. So let's talk about that for a second.
So in previous office chairs, from the 90s, the early 2000s, it was all about knobs and twists and turns and, reaching under your chair and trying to figure out what everything does. The Cosm is the complete opposite of that. There's one knob and it is going up and down. There's still no solution for kind of figuring it up and down without actually touching anything.
So how does it know how far back I need to tilt to stay ergonomic?
Once again, it's office chair nerdery. They use something called sitting force, which in other words is weight. Sitting force.
Yeah.
To you essentially reach a fulcrum point, and the moment that that the chair sort of catches you, it locks you in that fulcrum point. If you start leaning back, it adjusts a little bit and then locks you into a fulcrum point, so you don't start leaning back too far or start swinging around.
The other thing about this chair that's unique is that your feet will never leave the ground, and it's funny that we were actually talking about this, really talking about this before the camera.
This is something that I think is difficult to sort of see until you actually sit in a chair and you experience it both ways. When you're leaning back in a chair and your feet come off the ground, you're breaking ergonomics, you're hurting your back, you're putting pressure on your neck, everything from that foot off the ground point to the top of your, like just below your skull, basically, you're putting pressure on. This chair is the first chair, the first passive ergonomic chair as it's known, to not lift those feet off the ground. And so while that may sound like a very boring feature, it's essentially what makes it revolutionary.
So Will, you've talked about this chair quite a bit on Gear Patrol.
Yeah, sort of ad nauseum since its release. Yeah.
It was part of the GP100 last year.
Yeah, GP100, all sorts of reports, all sorts of comparisons. It's in our guide to best office chairs and task chairs. It's virtually everywhere on our website.
As an Aeron owner, why do I want to upgrade to the Cosm?
I think a big part of it is, one, we could talk all day about sort of like the ease of going up and down and like being able to lift back. We could talk about our feet coming off the ground and all that stuff, but it's also just a beautiful chair. There's something to be said about it just looking really nice and it being sort of a little more elegant than something with handles sticking out every which way of it.
So in the 90s, when the Aeron became quite popular, it became sort of the .com throne.
Yeah, understatement.
Which is, I think, your throne, which is your word. This chair had every adjustment you could imagine, right? Everything from lumbar support to seat adjustments to arm adjustments. And now you've got the Cosm, which is basically sort of quote-unquote magical, right? It requires no adjustments. Is this where chairs are going?
I think for the foreseeable future, for sure. We've seen other notable brands in this space, Knoll, your All Steel, Steelcase, all these companies that sort of make high-end task seating also release chairs that are similar. In my opinion, maybe not quite have matched this Herman Miller chair yet, though.
All right, so Will, what's the price on this thing?
The Herman Miller Cosm, depending on what size you go with, how high your back want to be, it's going to be in between $900 to $1,500.
Got it. All right, thanks, Will.